have come to kind of a clarity of what we have discussed and what we have proposed on the WhatsApp. How do we relate? How do we identify this very common principle, especially here in this part of the Maimer? Elokus, hasagah elokus, comprehension of elokus, that is l'mayla mi-yislapshus b'oilamos. Mi-b'chinas yislapshus b'oilamos. If it's l'mayla mi-b'chinas yislapshus b'oilamos, what are you masik? If it doesn't, if we interpret the words as in a world level, in world type of interpretation, it's not there. If it's not there, there's no, how do you approach it? What are you going to understand? Clearly, it does not mean that. It means it's there, but it's not there in a world means, not in a tangible. It is there in a divine means. It's a different kind of a presence. And this is the presence that we must try and identify and recognize. I'm looking around, is there a box of tissues? Anybody? I know mine. Oh, there, on that thing. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Okay. Excuse me. So the term that we read right here okay, I'm reading inside. So it's the bottom of the page, the line begins, ve-ha-hasagah. We have read these words many times over these days and weeks. The line after that starts with the word nihilis. Hasagah b'zeh be'ifun v'iragil be'ifun choleim. Moichin be'etzem, at the end of that line. Please follow this. Let's focus in and see what we are talking about. Moichin be'etzem hu, moichin in essence, is ha-hasagah, is the comprehension. I'm emphasizing the word ha-hasagah means we do know what we're talking about. It's not just blindly accepting it. Ha-hasagah, B'madreigis nailos be'er insoy baru, in supreme madreigis and in insoy, shelamaylo meb'chinas yislapshus b'oilamos. That is higher than b'chinas, than the whole phenomenon of yislapshus b'oilamos, of being imbued in world. Notice, and we're emphasizing it, it is not imbued in world. but it can be understood from world. It's above being immutable world, in world. It's a locus higher than the whole phenomenon of world. So what, if it is higher, so what kind of hasagah can you, what does it mean, you masig hasagah? So in principle, we have discussed the principle behind this is that the reality of a locus, whether we understand it or we don't understand where it comes from and how, what kind of entity this is, but we are very, very much aware and experience the reality of a locus on a constant basis. And since that we are aware and experience this reality, it can be spoken in terms of hasagah, of the comprehending it. Although it is a different kind of comprehension, because it is not a world level of comprehension. Nonetheless, because of our constant exposure, constant experience, cognizance, we can focus in and have a hasagah in it. This is what it means. So we discussed this, where do we have this exposure to a locus that's a mila mislapshus vayelus?
Can I ask something?
Go ahead.
When we think hasagah now in a locus, does it mean comprehension? Because always we said hasagah means getting it by the edges. So in a locus that's not possible. What do we mean?
Okay.
Say here?
Yeah. Okay. That's definitely one of the questions that we have to answer in this slide. What kind of hasagah is this? So that's what I said before. Clearly, we're talking about hasagah, but the parameters of this hasagah are different than what we are used to, what we are accustomed to, defending the hasagah. We will try to focus in on this. We have ample examples, illustrations, ample experiences that we have identified that fall into this category. Even though this is not higher world, it's in our world. Nonetheless, in our world we have aspects that fall into this category. To start with, the very beginning, Oyer shenivra b'yem lishin, light that was created the first day. So that light, the Gemara says that light could not rest in conjunction with world. World would cease to be world if that light should persist. Why so? Why could not world coexist with that light? So here's the important thing. Not because of the quality of the light, but because the anomaly of its presence. You understand what that means? Anomaly of its presence? Because that light did not have a luminary where from it comes. It's not the effect of the light itself that could not coexist with world. It is its very presence. Because world can recognize something that that has a source. This light did not have a source. It is a light that attests to one reality. This is a God world. God said there will be light, there is light. It's clearly a divine phenomenon. A divine phenomenon in full glory and in full effect in world kind of minimizes and cancels out worldliness.
What it couldn't you think of it just as improving or optimizing the world the same way we're surrounded by air and we don't seek the source? Could it not have been surrounded, everything illuminated, no source needed?
World, by definition, it was dark, is dark. World is physical. Physical is not light, not visible. It's touchable.
So it would have countered that principle, would have been such an anomaly as to...
But light in the world without a cause is something that light is a presence that is non-worldly. It counters world. World is ve-ha-hasagah. And this became all of a sudden light. This is why it needed to be withdrawn in order for the world to be able to coexist with it. But then we say, as we quote from the Ramban, and we explain the Sinyan, through by introduction of the sun, this anomaly, this problem has been kind of answered. Nonetheless, the quality of this light remained a super worldly quality. Why? Because since light in world consists of two things, a source and a beam.
Got it.
This light does not have a source. It has a source, but it doesn't act like a source. It engulfs the entire reality of the world. Like a beam of light. A beam of light has its beam, has its dimensions. This light has no dimensions. So it is still representative of the essence of the light in Nivra B'Yim Rishon. It's there because God wants it to be there. It's not limited to its resource. Except it is not so blatantly contradicting the principles of the world, the principle that there has to be a source. There's a sun. And nonetheless, it is still a light that is beyond absorption, so to speak. It is not a light that allows for two entities to be present at the same time, darkness and light. A beam of light says, yes, there is darkness. Daylight denies the presence of darkness. There is no such thing as darkness in daylight.
Wait, so here daylight is reminiscent of the light of day one?
Yeah. It's the same quality. Because if it were within the worldly parameters, since world in actually is dark, that darkness has to now configure together with the light. In partnership. It's light, but the light is countering the darkness. And you see that it's countering the darkness. But daylight is not countering any darkness. He has no challenges. This is a divine quality. It is light because God wants it to be light. It is not light because there is an entity, an energy that counters darkness. This is one of the things that we're going to mention, that means constant exposure, constant experience, that really we're experiencing it in our world, but it is not really worldly. And it is, and the very fact that we can experience and live with it shows that we have a quality in our soul that is able to relate and to absorb this type of a truth. This is called chochmah. And this is what we're saying. It's incumbent upon us to focus in on this chochmah, not to try to make sense of it from a worldly perspective. There is no way that you can do that. But to actually understand it, and thereby to relate to the godliness that it represents. That is, in that we are duty bound. In other words, despite that God created the world and He created us in the world, He does not relegate us to worldliness per se. He gave us chochmah, and He says, to the extent that you can relate and I recognize that which is higher than world, it's your privilege. Hasagah in that thing which is cannot be mislavish in world. Clearly, it is hasagah of chochmah, as we said many times in this hemshech. Hasagah of chochmah is a different kind of hasagah. Hasagah of chochmah is not a hasagah that allows for two states. Yes and no. We do not understand this light as it comes out of darkness. We understand its presence after the fact. How it occurs is beyond, you're not even trying to understand. This is the phenomenon of chochmah. It is sight. It sees. And it tries to absorb and relate to that which it sees. If you see something, you don't question it. What's the point? What for? This is different. This is the of sight, and this is the level of our comprehension of it, of this image is l'mayla mi-hasagah, l'mayla mi-ha'olamos. We have the comprehension of something that is not worldly. How? Because number one, because we're exposed to it. But in order to accomplish this comprehension, we have to draw upon our quality of chochmah, of beetle. We recognize this is a godly phenomenon. We understand it as such. We don't try to translate it in worldly terms. Even though we live in the world, we can recognize and live with a godly reality in our own lives. If we develop this approach and we come to recognize even this most obviously the first step of it, all of a sudden our eyes open up and we see it all over the place. In every aspect of our lives, like we said, ownership of a home is a divine phenomenon. The whole concept of ownership of a home is not of a worldly origin. Ownership is not identifying my ownership versus somebody else's. It's a fundamental reality. And as we said, Odom sheine bayis eine Odom. Okay, these are all things that expose us, that show us that there is something super worldly in our worldly experience. And we have the capacity to be masig this thing. And as we learned way back when, that this hasagah is defined not by hasagah in the simple terms and simple that we grasp it, we identify it by its parameters, by its limits, by its borders. It's hanocha b'nefesh, hanocha sichris. Our seichel is able to relate to it. Not our hands, not our feet, nothing else. How come the seichel is able to relate to it? Because the seichel is a neshama quality. It's a godly quality. We are, in a very real way, godly creatures. And this is manifest, again, coming back to the beginning, in many, many, many different ways. Our whole approach to life is different on account of this. As you pointed out many times, we stand on 2 feet. By worldly limit, by worldly parameters, does not make sense. If you're supported by earth, you have to stand on all fours. That's the only thing that's solid. Yes, sir.
If I remember correctly, when we learned then in Hanukkah, we said then, B'derech Hanukkah, Eloi B'derech Hasagah. Now we're saying that this Hasagah means B'derech Hanukkah.
Yeah, that's what he says over there. This Hasagah is Hanocha Sichlis. This Hasagah is Hanocha Sichlis. Why is it called Hasagah? Because you relate to it. You relate to it. It's called Hasagah. You got it. But you didn't get it by its parameters, by its borders, like you grasp something by our hand. You got it by a cycle. But we got it in the form of Hanocha. Hanocha means, I really have it. It's really a part of my seichel. It's not flighty. I'm not holding it, not holding it. I'm not losing it constantly. I don't lose it. I really have it. If I consent, here's the key. If I consent that I'm a godly creation, and I'm living in God's world, then I got it. If I reject that, if I have problems with that, and I want to see it exclusively from a worldly level, then I'm going to have problems. In preparation for Pesach, I'm thinking of all kinds of different things, preparing my speeches for Pesach, so to speak. We say in the bracha Ashigiolonu in ve-ha-hasagah. Hitzionim mi-avdus lecheirus. He drew us from avdus, from servitude and slavery, lecheirus, into freedom. Now, by word of definition, if you're not an Eved, what are you? Yitzchok?
If you're not an Eved,
Yeah.
what are you?
Yeah.
You're free.
You're free. Is then Chairus an additional gift?
No.
Hitzionim mi-avdus, and automatically we are Chairus. But by our own pronouncement, as the Chachamim have organized, have designed this bracha, mi-avdus lecheirus. Is lecheirus an additional gift, or is it just a default of Hitzionim mi-avdus?
No, it's
Clearly, in
The
the bracha
latter.
we say that's an additional gift. What is additional gift? God did not take us out from avdus of Parai and put us into the wilderness of the world. That's not chayrus. That's not chayrus. That's an animal level of chayrus, not a human being. Chayrus means to a human being and to neshama, it means that I have a real meaning in my life. What am I doing here? I have an occupation for 24/7. Not because I'm an avid, because I'm ben chayrim. There's real significance in my life. This is the greater gift that the Rebbe gave us than even taking out of the head of Parai. Took us out of the Parai, it's okay, so we're not slave to Parai. It's not slave to Parai, we can slave to the rest of the world.
Why is it that if you have meaning, that makes a ben choir?
That makes
A ben chayrim. Because this meaning is something which is identified by your own intelligence. This is what reality is to you. Not meaning a purpose. You have a chochmah perception. Where are you? You're not in nothingness, like we said all the time. To be in a house is not a very pleasant way to live. To be in a home is a pleasant thing to do. What's the difference? A house is in the wild, in the meaningless state of protection against the elements, which is an animal level. A home is a human perception. Odom sheina bayis in the Odom means a home, not a house. I point out all the time. This is one of those things that is so blatant, that one has a rest at home on a cot much superior than on the cushion mattress in a hotel. Hotel? What's wrong with a hotel? It's secure. It's when you have yitzim mishosim, vashim mishosim. At the ring of a bell, you get your breakfast. What can be more better than that? This is a world level of experience. A human being is much more profound than that. Thus, and I said, this is a very broad subject because there's many illustrations that we have already touched upon today and other days. Just have to realize, yes, we do have hasagah in inyonim that are the mile and islapshus vaynos. And as we pointed out, they is l'mayla mislapshus vaynos. And the best indicator of that, and the best way to relate to this is from the Torah itself. Like I mentioned many times, all the creation, the Adam Rishon was given the privilege and the duty to name them, except a few. One is they. Why? Because he cannot get his head around, his mind around it. How can you name it? A name means you can identify something in security from everything else, separate. You can't. So that's why who can name it? Only God Himself can name it. He created all kinds of creatures and He told Adam Rishon, you name them. But day and night God named Himself. As simple as thing as this. And that's what it is. Because a human being, a human mind cannot wrap itself around it. There's nothing to wrap around. It's limitless. And yet, we experience it, we see it, and we can focus in chochmah, not in bina to even a name, but in chochmah we can actually understand it, be masig it. And that's our duty.
Can I ask something?
Uh-huh.
I didn't understand on WhatsApp yesterday. Shmuley asked that day is also enclothed in the sun. The day comes from the sun.
So that's what we explained. The sun is what's called a camouflage. You know what camouflage? It confuses, it hides the miraculous aspect of day. And you say, oh, the day comes from the sun. But it's not true. It's not true. No, it's not come from a beam from the sun. Because if it was a beam, a ray of light, it wouldn't be day. And this is what happened. The Rebbe, so to speak, concealed, hid the miracle of day into the sun so that the world doesn't go batty. Where does this come from? But it's not to say that's all it is. It's still a divine creation.
But I remember was saying that the sun is an 8th day, and was
The sun is what?
the day. The sun is 8th Behiri.
Etzem Behiri. Etzem Behiri is not. Etzem Behiri is really a divine presence. Because anything Etzem is not world. Can you train an animal to become human? You can train an animal to act very much like a human. Like the story with the Rambam, with a cat. You can train to act them in a perfect human terms. But to get the human sense of reality is no way. This is something, this is etzem. This is something which is the godly presence in the human being itself. This is not something that you learn. This is by definition what you are. Okay, it's time for us to start preparing for davening. Have a great day. So, among the things that we've discussed over there on the WhatsApp,